welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, your host. Thank you so much for joining us here on the program. And we are so grateful that you join us each Sunday at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. and Monday mornings at 1 a.m., as well as the morning broadcast on Wednesdays, 9 a.m. So we are glad that you join us for those programs. Hope that you learn something. You're entertained as well as educated and inspired to take action in your own life, to transform your life and the lives of the people around you. You say, I can't transform anybody else's life. But you can, because by your transforming your life, changing your life, making those adjustments in your life, you actually do affect the people around you. We are connected, whether you like it or not. Hey, we're in the middle of a pandemic. If you don't think we're connected, you better take a look around you because we do affect the lives of the people around us. America has lost over 700,000 human beings, people that you and I used to walk the streets with, work with, go to church and play with, have dinner with, and so forth. So we need to remember that we are connected. Today's program, I think you're going to enjoy as we move forward here. I'll give you all the particulars about the program and what have you later. But Ken Gosnell is my guest, and the book that he has right now is called Well Done. We're going to be talking about that book and the aspects therein. Ken, first of all, thank you so much for joining us here on the program. It's really a pleasure to have you with us.
Well, thank you, Richard. I'm delighted to be here, and I love your show.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. It is one of those things that this particular subject that we're going to go into is one that, and it is kind of funny in a way that I kind of went off on a rant before we started. But it still ties into what we're talking about because the kinds of issues that I'm dealing with, everybody's dealing with, but from a lot of different perspectives. And you being a leading, you leading a business, it can be hard. It can be difficult. I don't actually have one. I did. In 1994, I actually had a business for 1 year. Then I filed my taxes. Then I owed the IRS $3,000. Then I shut the business down. And I said, the next time I start a business, I'm going to have a CPA on hand to take care of this so I don't owe money to the IRS. But that's only one of those areas of challenge in a business. And we're here to talk about that through the book that you have written called Well Done. First of all, in terms of, we're talking not just about money. We are talking about doing business. Somebody has said many times, Ken, and I want to tie this in a little bit, that government cannot be run like a business because that's not what it is. And yet we have people who have been in the office who try to do that. And many people say that and I guess this is attributed to Ronald Reagan, who said that the one phrase you never want to hear is, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing but denigration and name calling and all that kind of stuff. But I'll tell you, if I hear, hi, I'm from a corporation and I'm here to help, I take the same attitude because of the way corporations have operated. Here in California, and I'm not sure where you live, but I live here in California. I moved from Arizona. And of course, we have regulations, Ken. I use this analogy. You're on a chessboard. You're in the middle of a chessboard. And here are the rules. You can't move forward. You can't move backward. You can't move to the left, and you can't move to the right. And you can't go diagonally. And the final rule, you can't stay where you are. Well, here's the kicker that I think a lot of people have forgotten when it comes to, and again, regulations that do impact businesses and government and so forth. The reason regulations even started is because businesses refused in the late 18 and early 1900s to do the right thing. Why do you think we have child labor laws? And ADA, and the list goes on of some of those good ones. Now, Ken, would you agree with me? Hey, regulations have gone completely berserk, right? Gone way over the top.
Right.
And this is just one area. Then you've got your financial aspect in business. I mean, there's so many areas. And you've written this book called Well Done. that basically tells us, I want to get to the end of my life, my business. Let's say I sell it, or, I want to retire and, I did good. I did good by the people who I worked with and who worked for me. I did good by my customers. Harry Chapin once told a story of his I think it was his grandfather, who basically talked about a good tired and a bad tired. And it was that good tired that he really focused on, because he says, I fought my battles, I did my thing, I did the right thing here and there, and I can put my head down on the pillow and I can say, I am good tired, and sleep the sleep of the just. And I'm ready to go. And yet we keep hearing these stories about one company after another just, can I put it this way, shafting the public, the consumer, this person and that person. Where did you begin when it came to putting this together in terms of coming to the end, if you will, where you would hear, hey, great job, well done, thank you so much for being of service?
Absolutely. Yeah, I wanted to rewrite the script for business, and one of the key indicators that you were just mentioning was the lack of, the loss of trust, the lack of belief that a lot of employees, a lot of communities, a lot of individuals have in corporations and in big business today. And so what I found was I began to do research and to think about successful businesses, and what I mean by that, we're not just profitable businesses, but businesses that really made a difference in the lives of individuals over the last 100 years, and companies that had showed a track record over a long period of time, like a company like JCPenney that's been in existence almost 120 years.
Wow.
And what I found was quite interesting, because I wanted to look at businesses that were successful over the long haul. And what did it take to be successful, not just for a day, but for a season, or maybe for multiple seasons, if you will, if you think about, over 100 years. And one of the principles that I challenge business owners to think about is to have that, what I call 4-generation thinking, 100-year kind of mentality. So don't make decisions just based in the short term, but make decisions on the long term. And what I found was that as I looked at the landscape of businesses and business leaders, CEOs and business owners, because the business would often reflect the values or the principles of the leader. And what I found was that there were certain principles that begin to elevate or to rise. And I'm of Christian faith, and so I mapped those principles back to the Bible and God's Word, and I found that some of the best business books, some of the best principles, some of the best businesses were really rooted and grounded in what I call biblical business principles. And so I call myself a business Christian today. We can have different philosophies or different ideas, and what I mean by that is that somebody that looks at biblical concepts or biblical ideas and how does that apply to business decisions. And there's a story in the Bible that my father used to tell me when I was a kid. Now, my father has an interesting story in itself. He was the oldest of 6 children, and in the 1950s, when he was 15 years old, his dad was pursuing a dream. They'd moved him out of the city of St. Louis, went to buy a farm, and that was his father's dream, my grandfather's dream. But in the meantime, while they tried to get the farm up and running, he went to work a construction crew and road crew, and they were repairing a road one day, and a drunk driver came through and actually ran over my grandfather, killed him on the spot.
Wow.
And so my father went to work at the age of 15, quit high school, went to work, and actually went to a company that's still in existence today, been in a company that's almost 75 years old. Practice some of these principles. So my father used to teach me this story about well done because he learned it in the Bible. There's a story about a business owner or a leader that left and had 3 employees, and he gave some funds to each of the employees and said, hey, go put it to work. And when he came back, a couple of the employees had done really well, and the leader said, well done, good and faithful servant. And that's where this terminology is well done. So I look at these principles as values that can really change the landscape of business. When we come back and find some of these key principles that will guide the decisions in every aspect of their business. So I've been working with companies now for the last 20 years on these principles. We just released the book earlier this year, but I've been teaching these principles for a number of years and helping companies to really rewrite how they do business, and for the CEO, how they lead.
And to me, that is so important. I have one, I'm going to consider it to be a crucial question. And you made I think a very, very nice turn of phrase there about how, we all have our different philosophies, our different beliefs and so forth. Will this book and the principles that you've outlined, as you've stated, the biblical principles, be something that someone who may not be a believer, a Christian, they can use too? Because there was something that struck me back in 2005. I was working for a progressive station, Air America Phoenix, and it was bought by a Christian consortium that also bought the Christian station that I had worked for the previous 15 years. And they told the newspapers in 2005, when asked, "Are you going to change the format?" And they said, "Oh, no, we wouldn't. They're successful. They're making money," and so forth. We had actually broken even. We were the first station, Air America station across the country to break even in 9 months. Not a year, 9 months. And they said, "Oh, no, we're not going to change the format." As soon as I heard that, I knew they lied. They lied to the public and to the reporter, because I knew enough after working for 15 years at the Christian station. The one passage that kept coming up for me, and this is sort of where I'm going with this, Ken, "Be ye not unequally yoked to non-believers." Well, February 28th of 2006 was my last day because they were changing the format.
Right. Yep.
And I was ready for it. I mean, I could see the writing on the wall when all of this was unfolding, because I knew how this business works. So, and maybe it's changed. I haven't been involved in the inner circle, if you will, since 1995. Okay, when I was working in Christian broadcasting from 1980 to 95. So I don't know how things have changed within. I would hope that they've shifted a little to say, look, our principles, they're great for us, but we can even go back to Jesus. He didn't come here for the pure, for the clean, for the saints. He came here for the quote unquote sinners. The church wasn't for the saints; it was for the sinners, which always perplexed me when I would hear denigrations of different groups of people by the televangelists of the 80s and early 90s. I thought, oh boy, have you guys missed it. So is your book for everybody?
Yeah, it is. The way I wrote the book was each of the principles that I talk about, I put it in business vernacular, if you will. So one of the principles, it's not principles that are the do's and don'ts, if you will. It's more principles that are guiding values. So one of the principles that I would teach in the book that I think a lot of, unfortunately, Christian businesses and individuals across the landscape maybe of our land have forgotten is what I call a principle of knowing your yeses and nos, right? And I talk about the clarity that comes from that. Jesus, I get this out of the gospel account of Matthew. Mm-hmm. There was a story where Jesus said, "Let your yes be yes and your no be no." Mm-hmm. And, I think that principle is really important where it comes to leadership from a CEO, from a business owner, from a business itself. And what I remind leaders today is I say, hey, when you're clear, when the leader is clear, everyone and everybody and everything in the organization becomes clear. And so that's a principle that I believe any person can embrace and begin to apply it into their life. And of course, we're really wanting them to apply it into their businesses. I found that I did a lot of working with companies of various sizes over the last 20 years or so. And one of the biggest aspects of that is I would go in and we'd help clean up some messes that were created because that were told there were uncertainty that was being communicated from the top down, and there was a lack of trust about, hey, who do we believe in and who do we want to follow? And I think that's happening in our world today. Even when we look at the political realm of the pandemic and mandates that are being put down and all these things. And when employees or teams know their leaders' clarity, when they know their yeses and they know what the leader is going to say no to, then that's a leader that people want to follow. And I think that's true whether you're a Christian or whether you're whatever belief that you might be. So that's part of that. I wanted to, this leadership book and business book, I tried to come at it from a little different perspective because I did want to highlight the business principles. I wanted to show an authenticity of where I believe that was in the scriptures or the Bible to show that this was a principle that's been true for thousands of years. It's been practiced in multiple generations by a variety of different leaders. But I do believe that anybody could pick up this book. Matter of fact, I've had multiple people that have picked up the book that weren't Christian, and they said, man, I'm just so thankful for this book because it's so practical, it's so helpful. It's not only helped me in business, but it's also helped me in life, in an organization that I'm running, or just even as I'm thinking about my own personal life. So you don't have to be a Christian to understand the principles of the book or even to apply the principles.
My guest today is Ken Gosnell. He's the author of Well Done, 12 Biblical Business Principles for Leaders to Grow Their Business with Kingdom Impact. All right, we can certainly live with that and work with that, and I hope we will. The website you want to go to get more information about the book, welldonebook.com. That's welldonebook.com. And your website that we want to send people to is ceoexperience.com. We'll be linked to those, and you're also all over social media as well. And we are going to continue here on Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and I thank you so much for being with us here, along with Ken Gosnell. His book is Well Done. You know, I have to tell you that it's always nice to hear those words or words to that effect. Matter of fact, you know what springs to mind? It was a Veterans Day, and it was, I don't even remember the year now. Maybe it was 2000. Yeah, it was 2000, because I was working for a station, and we had a morning man who was on from 6 to 10. I was his producer behind the console. And the program director days earlier said, look, here's what we want to do with our Veterans Day show. We want to get all of these different veterans. We had Deacon Cini on. I think we had McCain on at that time, and so on and so forth. And he says, and our morning man was very intellectual, very much in the head, very cerebral, great guy, Christian as well, and not that makes that much difference. He was really good at his job. I do have to say he's since passed away, and I was very sad about that because I wanted to touch base with him again, see how he was doing. I now know. Anyway, and he says, what we want to do is we want to bring out Austin's emotion. Okay, he's very good at very intellectual, but we want him to be more human, so to speak. Okay, not you know what I'm saying. Yeah. So we do the entire show. It goes flawlessly, absolutely one of the best programs that I've ever been a part of. And at the end of the show, Austin is in there wrapping up, and all of a sudden he starts to break down. And I'm going, we didn't want to make him, I'm just saying to myself, we didn't want to make him cry, Well, my boss, the program director, walks into the control room, walks right in front of me and the glass where I can see Austin, puts out his hand, stretches out his hand, shakes my hand and says, 4 stars, and shook my hand. And I actually recorded that whole 4 hours. I've got it at home on a disc.
That's awesome.
That was an awesome feeling. Now, I knew that it was a great show, whether he came in there and did that or not. I could feel it inside. Oh my gosh, it was so exciting. I can still feel it today. Unfortunately, in our businesses today, we're not getting that from the people above us, or sometimes even next to us. And I have to tell you very honestly, and you would probably agree with me from your personal experience, I wouldn't be here talking with you right now, Ken, if it weren't for literally thousands of people who have been involved in my life and my career for the past 40 plus years, let alone my parents for the last 61 years. How does someone who feels like they're being ignored, unappreciated, and so forth, how does one foster that within themselves if they're by themselves in that respect? Because you know as well as I do that what can really set in is this feeling of, well, they don't pay me enough and they don't this and that. So I'll take the stapler and then I'll take this. Motorola back in '85, I heard the news story, laid off 1,000 people because they found after an audit, $1 million worth of materials had been pilfered.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about the principles that would apply to someone who is not being appreciated, and they are doing a good job. They are giving their all. They're committed to what they're doing.
Yeah, I say well done is the two most powerful words in the English language. It's the two words every leader should speak and every leader wants to hear. And I use leader in a broad perspective on that as from any individual because you're leading yourself. Mm-hmm. And so I'm on this well done mission, right? That I really want companies to think about organizing their organization that way. I want the leaders to inspire their people by communicating these well done principles. I want every team member that's part of the organization to embrace these principles. And what I would say is, and what I've lived out in my own journey, obviously I wrote the book specifically towards leaders and business leaders specifically. But again, I've had people that are not a CEO that's picked up the book. And I believe the way I wrote it was that it was really to inspire any person that wanted to live at that higher level. And what I would say is that, well done, although we love to hear it from externally, it really comes up from us internally. Mm. And that was what my father taught me years ago. He would look at me and he would say that, hey, looks like you did a great job, but only you know if you did your best job. If you did your best work, right? And what he was trying to communicate to me was it's good to hear the words well done from somebody else. It's significant when we say to ourselves at the end of the day, I did the very best that I could. And that's what these principles talk about. So knowing my yeses and nos is one of those. Another principle that I write about in the book is I say know your order, work your order. So often in life, in business, and what I reference is every business is built on processes. Mm-hmm. So there's a step-by-step process to everything within the business. And the more successful the business, usually the better the process or the more thought out the process, or there are more processes that are developed or enhanced in the business. Yeah. You walk into a Starbucks today, for example, and it may seem simple, but they have a process of how they take your order and how they write your name on the cup and mm-hmm. how they pass it down and how, who gets the coffee first, whether it's the drive-through or whether it's you've got your Starbucks. I do too.
I know. It's bad.
There's an order to that, right?
I couldn't resist.
That's right.
My boss has set up. I've been working with him here in Santa Barbara for 15 years. Mm. All right. And he has set up some protocols. Mm-hmm. Now it's just he and I. Mm-hmm. So there are only two sets of eyes looking at what we're doing, but he set up, they're not exactly redundancies, but they help each of us to catch the other. And there is never any blame or criticism for catching the other. Yep. Because the whole point is to catch these things before they ever leave the office.
That's right.
And so it's one of those things where you don't have to. It isn't a question of developing a thick skin. Right. It's a question of changing your perspective. What's the goal here? Well, the goal here is to serve the programmers, the advertisers, as well as the listeners. Okay, and the key phrase that he has hammered home to me, even after 15 years, Richard, we're here to serve. Period. Now we're a secular commercial station, but we're still here to serve. We're here to develop relationships with both the buying public that comes in to buy airtime. I still love I still love from City Slickers, Billy Crystal's comment to his wife, because he was selling advertising for a radio station. He says, I sell air. That's all. I sell air. We breathe it. I'm selling air. It's like that's what he's selling in a manner of speaking. But it is fascinating to have worked here. I learned a lot from one of the Christian general manager back in the 80s. And unfortunately, and I want you to talk to us about this as we continue here, I want you to talk to us in just a moment about what he tried to instill in me that I couldn't buy. The law of diminishing returns. Don't put out any more than you expect to get back. And expect to talk about that as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. Ken Gosnell is my guest. His book is Well Done, 12 Biblical Business Principles for Leaders to Grow Their Business with Kingdom Impact. And let me ask you folks a question before we get to my question to Ken about the law of diminishing returns. Do you feel stuck and alone because you feel like you have to be on the one that does everything for your business? I can raise my hand and say, sometimes I do, and I do a lot of stuff around here that 3 people should be doing, but it's okay. I've managed to set up protocols. Ever wish you could spend one full day with either entrepreneurs, CEOs, other entrepreneurs, CEOs, business owners, leaders, leading their business, leading their best ideas, actually learning their best ideas so that you don't have to recreate the wheel on everything in the business? Well, we're going to find out more about that as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I am here with Ken Gosnell, author of Well Done. Boy, I tell you what, we do need to hear that. And let me just say, Ken, sincerely, well done on the book because, and on your attitude, your perspective, because of what I said at the outset of this program and my experiences back in the 80s, early 90s, that you have a genuine concern and a genuine heart for the people. The people. It doesn't matter what they believe, what their political affiliation is, what their economic status is. It doesn't matter where they live and so on and so forth. You're just trying to help. You're trying, and in your way, you're serving. Talk to us about the law of diminishing returns that my boss back in the 80s, early 90s tried to instill in me, and I just couldn't buy it.
Well, I think it's right. I mean, law of diminishing returns is a business concept or idea that if we give too much effort to a particular area, we're not seeing our best and highest value that's given to that. I would change the paradigm on that a little bit. And one of the principles that I write about in chapter 4 of the book is what I say, make the move from owner to overseer. And the idea, and I'm specifically writing to business owners, but I think it's true of any person. The Bible speaks a lot about the idea of servant leadership, and I like to use the term steward leadership.
Thank you. Stewardship
to me means that I'm given a task or a portion of a task for a period of time. And most likely, we talked about businesses being in existence for 100 years, right? So most likely a business or a task may outlive me, meaning that I may work on it for a little while and then I'm going to hand it off to somebody else. That's what I call stewardship. I see who's done work before me and I build on that work and I build it in such a way that I can hand it off to somebody else. And so I don't really like the law of diminishing returns. I rather think about it in terms of, am I a good steward of the work that I'm doing? Am I doing it with diligence of today so that I can do it in such a way that I believe it's my best effort to do it? Am I passing it off to the next person so that they're set up for success, not set up for failure? And those are the questions that should help me to evaluate whether I should continue to work on that or not. Because I believe that in business, there's another law that I principle or practice in the book, is I call it the law of sowing and reaping, right? You have a seed and you plant it and, have crops that grow up. In the Bible, there's a story about that says a planter had some seeds and some of that crop grew 60, 80, and 100-fold. 100 times the seed that was planted. So, the law of diminishing returns is hard because maybe that's down, that bit of effort is going to produce 100 times return. And we're guessing that it's actually diminishing returns. It may not be diminishing returns. So I really like to change the framework of that to say, is this a good stewardship? Is this the best effort of what I'm supposed to be working on in this moment? Or am I called to go do something else that maybe I'm being asked to do that's going to be a great benefit? But then I'm evaluating it from a stewardship perspective.
Yeah. Well, here's another area I want to talk about as we continue here, and that has to do with our inner voice, if you will. And we're talking with Ken Gosnell. He is the author of Well Done. I'm Richard Dugan. This is Tell Me Your Story. We are bringing you new paradigms for a new world, giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true here on the program as we talk with Ken Gosnell, author of Well Done. And they are 12 biblical principles, if you will. And although the phrase well done has a noble connotation to it, many business leaders, including Ken Gosnell, our guest here on the program, have a difficult time describing and defining what those words look like in the lives of a business that is led by a person of faith. In Well Done, our guest takes and describes the 12 biblical business principles that can help any leader to who desires to grow their business and its kingdom impact. And these principles help to create a strategic roadmap for leaders to hear the words, well done, at the end of their journey. And every leader deserves to hear the words, well done. I would say they deserve to hear those words, Ken, only if they've actually done well.
Right.
I think of some of the stories through history and recent history, the last 150 or so years. I think about people like J.P. Morgan and Tesla and the story. I don't know if it's true or not, but the story that because J.P. had so much money invested in copper, there was no way he was going to let Tesla succeed in his endeavors to be able to get electricity right out of the air. I mean, his machine just basically, and see, that's the other thing too, is science has proven that everything is energy. Everything is energy. Every molecule. Our bodies will decay, but the energy that holds those subatomic particles together, it's not going away. It's just going to reconfigure those molecules down the road into something else, and maybe a tree, some grass. We just don't know. Anyway, so we're kind of talking about that. But I would like to talk about something we talk about regularly on this program, Ken. We talk about the decade of perfect vision, the 2020s. Mm-hmm. We are encouraging people to go within, into that quiet, peaceful, calm space. Some might refer to it as their closet, okay? You talk about praying in secret, in private, okay? And listening to that still, small voice. Now, I myself refer to the still, small voice that I'm listening to as my friend. And you can elaborate on this if you'd like, that I do not believe that the still small voice will ever put you in harm's way. It will challenge you, but never put you in harm's way. And the more you follow the promptings, it's not that the easier your life will be, but that's what it's there for, to guide you, to lead you. How does one in business, and this is sort of off-putting to the secular world, okay, when you hear even a president say, God spoke to me and said, and I remember some words sort of to that effect from George Bush Jr., who made a comment to that effect. And I know that maybe a lot of Christians kind of cringe. Oh, don't say it that way. But the reality is that if we're listening to and following those promptings, in a manner of speaking, yes, we are. But it's just for us. It's just for us. It's not, I'm not going to tell you, Ken, God told me to tell you, da-da-da-da-da-da. Because I have a direct line, and hey, I'll even take a collect call. Okay? Share with us your perspective.
Yeah, I think it's, whether you call it your gut instinct or whether it's a still small voice or a whisper in your ear, an angel on your shoulder. I mean, it can be lots of different connotations of that. And I do believe that inner a leader, and we ought to trust the inner spirit. Now, sometimes, whether we're a leader or we're by ourselves, we begin to doubt and we begin to question whether that's reality or not. And that's why another one of the principles that I really elevate is what I call Principle 10. I say improve your team to improve your organization. And the team starts with us as a leader. So improve your instincts, improve your gut, improve your vision, improve your mindset, improve your mind. But then the team can go from an outer perspective as well. And what I find is, and what I found in a lot of business leaders, is that if they can present an idea to their team, whether that's an external team or an internal team, and they're doing it with clarity, then the team can reaffirm that still small voice or can challenge the still small voice, and you become more committed to your yeses and nos to walk that out with passion because you believe in your own certainty that this is the path that we should take. And when a leader does that, then people are going to follow along and they're still going to support the leader's vision. But I believe that's part of the reason, part of the role that we do at CEO Experience is I bring together CEOs and business owners in what I call retreats, because I want them to listen to that still small voice in their mind. I want them to get away from their business for a day, to be able to hear their self, to hear what their inner self is telling them, and then to reaffirm that in the presence of other CEOs or business owners, or chief experience officers is what I call our role in that philosophy. And what I find is when that happens, I mean, I was just at a retreat yesterday, and I had two of the CEOs that were there that was just talking about the decisions that they had made over the last 6 or 7 months, even in the midst of a pandemic. And they said that because they were able and they had the courage to make that decisions because of the support of the other business owners in the team, that their companies had reached new peaks and new heights that they never even dreamed before. One matter of fact, one guy said, "Man, I wish I'd have done this 15 years ago because my company could be where it could have been where it is today 15 years ago if I'd have had a group like this that helps me to understand myself and understand what I'm trying to accomplish." And of course, we don't like to live in regret. We like to live in the future. But I thought that statement was so profound because it wasn't necessarily the wisdom of the group that was so profound. What it was his own wisdom that the group just reaffirmed, and they gave him confidence to walk out that vision in his life and in his business. But yeah, I believe in the still small voice. I think that most of us, we get distracted or disorganized because we don't understand what our purpose and our vision is, and we don't have that clarity in our life. And so it's important to separate a little bit in order to make sure that we're listening to that inner spirit.
Many people have shared with me that, I need to do this and that and the other thing, with the program, monetize it and so forth. And I've basically, right at this moment, I've said, I can't do that. I don't want there to be a barrier between the listener or viewer, because we are not only podcasting as well as broadcasting, we're video casting on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel called Tell Me Your Story. And I don't want there to be a barrier between the information that we provide, you or anybody else, to those people who want to hear it, who maybe need to hear it, and I'm not making that judgment by anybody, by any sense. Nobody needs to hear what we're talking about. I'd like for them to listen. I want them to listen, but it's entirely up to them. If they're led to do so, wonderful. If not, that's fine too. We lay out a smorgasbord table. And by the way, the table gets bigger every interview. And we put whatever it is that you're serving to us on that table, and we ask people to go check it out. If it doesn't resonate with you, if it doesn't feel right for you, all right, don't do it, but get something. And then come back later, because maybe what you took the last time will maybe make you ready for the next thing. I didn't like tomatoes when I was a little kid. I love them today. So there you go. This is Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, along with Ken Gosnell, author of Well Done. And I like that phrase. I compliment the people that I work with. I have been operations manager at a number of different stations. I have never, ever said these people work for me, even though I was technically the supervisor. We work together because I'm doing the same job they are, which helps me, of course, to assist them in the process. That seems to be another issue, too, I think, with supervisors who have never done the job of the people they're supervising. And it seems to me that that should be a prerequisite, even if you go in there and maybe do it for a week or a month, okay? I love that one, the Undercover Boss program. I love that program when the CEO of the corporation, especially one that's national or multinational, puts on all the gear to hide and goes in and does some of these jobs and begins to realize what the people he has working for him or with him have to go through and the struggles and the strains. How far should that go in terms of, I don't know if it's the right word is compassion for and I'll use the term employees or co-workers. How far should that go? I mean, it's, we're living through tough times right now, as they say, with the pandemic and then, of course, all of the other things that are going on around the world. Help!
Well, I love that show as well because it does really embody what a well-done leader, what I would call a well-done leader, looks like. And, there's a principle that we've been practicing in business for many years, and unfortunately we've forgotten. It's been practiced in every culture that's ever really graced the face of Earth. It's called the Golden Rule. Mm-hmm. And I write about that in the book. I say the Golden Rule works if you work it. And basically the Golden Rule says that we should treat other people like we'd want to be treated. Mm-hmm. And I think to your point about business leaders and business owners, it's hard to know how to treat our employees if we've never walked in their shoes. We've never done their job. Yeah. We've never understood the pressure or the tension that they have to deal with. And that's what that show, Undercover Boss, really illustrates, that when the business owner is putting himself in the shoe and acting in that role, now he knows how to treat that individual. And as a matter of fact, I encourage business owners to do that, not necessarily undercover, but I say, you ought to, everybody takes vacation in work, or you should, try to encourage that. Yeah. I say, go sit in your somebody else's seat for a week while they're on vacation. Yeah. If you own a manufacturing company, go work in the back for a week, and be that. If you have a administrative assistant that takes a vacation, you answer the calls for a week and act like you're the administrative individual that's there, or you're the salesperson. Yeah. Go and when they go on vacation, you go fill in their shoes. Now you're not trying to be them. You're not trying to, do anything other than understand them. And you try not to mess it up, I tell them.
Yeah. Now you got something you have to fix as the supervisor.
Right. But it's the whole part of understanding, and we've missed this so much in our culture today, or we've missed this so much in our, we don't consider other people. We don't treat others like we want to be treated. And that's my biggest, I am on social media a lot. And I look at social media as an opportunity to communicate well done and to share ideas that empower, right? Yeah. It's not a place that we have to tear down others or make them feel bad. And I mean, I'm all about having real hard conversations, and let's wrestle with difficult moments, right? Mm-hmm. And let's have two different sides. And I believe the diversity makes us stronger. But I don't think we have to be, I think the golden rule, I come back to the golden rule works if you work it. Can treat other people like you would want to be treated.
Yeah.
And that means understanding who they are and responding them with respect and value.
Yeah. One thing I would like to touch upon, a universal principle that I have kind of brought about from those days back in the 80s and 90s that I want to share with you and talk to you about as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, and I hope that you will join us both on the broadcast, the podcast, and the video cast. YouTube is the video cast, SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher Player, FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, and Amazon, and many other locations across the depth and breadth and width of the internet. I don't know where it begins or ends, but there it is. And then, of course, the broadcast right here on this station, 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. on Sundays, 1 a.m. Monday mornings, and 9 a.m. Wednesday mornings. We hope that you'll do that. And if you can support the broadcast and what we're doing here, we would greatly appreciate that. Any amount is welcome through PayPal. It's there for your security as well as ours. And when you go there to send, they're going to ask you for the email address of the one receiving. And that email address is richard@richarddugan.com. So hope that you will take advantage of that and join us in the work that we are doing here. Ken Gosnell's my guest, and we are talking about Well Done, his latest work. Ken Gosnell is with us, and I wanted to share with you a principle. I call it a universal law. Now, it is actually tied into what you quoted earlier about reaping and sowing. The universal law, as I phrase it, is there is always, always, always an exchange. No exception. You can, and I know I've heard this phrase before, you cannot outgive God. Well, that is true, but then again, I'm not trying to outgive God. What I'm trying to do is understand how I can get compensation for the work I've put in. But then, of course, I look at it from this standpoint. You know how people, they'll give financial contributions, tax deductibles, in order to reduce their tax liability? And that's the reason why they do it. Not because they really care about the charity, but because they want to minimize their taxes. Well, when it comes to the law of exchange, the universe basically says, if there's going to be a giver, there must be a receiver. And if there's going to be a receiver, there must be a giver. You can't have it one way. And so when you hear, like at Christmas time, oh, Ken, you shouldn't have. No, I can't take this, Ken. No, please, please. You are depriving the giver of giving. That type of thing. But the whole aspect of compensation, this is how I learned this universal principle. When I was working for the Christian station, when I was hiring people and they would start working for us, I'd say, okay, I need you to go in and clean the bathroom. You guys don't pay me enough. Now, I could have gone down that road. I really could have. But I was given the opportunity very early on to do interviews just like this. 30-minute interviews that would run at 7 and 7:30 p.m. during the week. And I began to take a look at getting compensation. Now, I wasn't going to get paid anything extra because I was doing it during my regular 8-hour shift. But I started thinking about that. I think, wait a minute. I am getting compensation. I'm getting the experience. I'm getting the contact and the relationship. I am getting the materials, whether it's a CD or a book or whatever it is. I'm getting a lot more than they could ever pay me for the experience that I'm getting. And that's when I got to that point where I said, I will take the abundance and the prosperity. I will take the exchange in whatever form that it comes in. If it comes in my paycheck, thank you. If it doesn't, thank you. Because there's a beautiful passage from the New Testament that says, Jesus is talking and saying, do you see the birds flying around up there? They don't work, they don't toil, and yet they are cared for. How much more will your Father care for you? Talk to us about this principle.
Yeah, I love it. I think one of the things that when I talk about a team and building a better team, I say to all of us that we become more valuable when we create more value. And it's a principle that I wanted to be, my first boss years ago told me in business, he said, Ken, your best ability is your availability. And what he was basically communicating to me way back when, because I worked for a manufacturing company, was, hey, I need you to show up. That is the very best thing that you can do. And, if you don't show up, you don't get paid, you're not helping the company, right? And that always stuck with me as a foundational principle. But then I thought, well, if I showed up and I did something more, right? If I went a little bit further, then I'd probably become more valuable to this organization. And so a simple way I used to do it years ago was I'd always figure out what the boss was reading. And whatever book he had on his desk, I'd go to the local bookstore and I'd get a book, either that same book or I'd get a similar book. And I'd carry it around with me. I'd have it in the cafeteria or the lunchroom or wherever it was, because I wanted the boss or the leader to see that I was caring about the same things that he was caring about or she was caring about. And I wanted them to know that think like them. I wanted to start becoming, not necessarily acting like them in every aspect, but I wanted to start having a different perspective on it. And that speaks to your point, right? It's the fact that, hey, when I go, I realized that whether the company recognizes it or not, there was something in it for me. I could become a little bit better. I could become a little bit more, add more value. And then as I became, not only for the company, but as I became added more value, I started to become more valuable to myself. And I think that's the point that you're really driving about. And I think that's right now. That goes to this heart of it. It's never about the company. It's never about the leader. And unfortunately, there's been a lot of bad companies, and there's been a lot of bad leadership, and there's been a lot of people that have done terrible, terrible things to employees or team members. And I hate when I see that, because I believe that it becomes very short-sighted about the business. But I would challenge all of us that it's never about those things anyway. We all have a company of one, right, which is ourselves. We're all, Ken Inc. or Richard Inc. or Bob Inc. or Tom Inc. or Sue Inc. or whoever it is. And so I have to have a perspective that I'm trying to become the most valuable person that I can be. And when I'm valuable, somewhere along the way, somebody else is going to begin to see that value and want that to be a part of their team.
I tell you, it's wonderful to hear the words you're speaking, and I hope that they go to the right ears. It's something that I think that we are all faced with from time to time in our lives, whether we realize it sometimes or not. And sometimes it's dealing with corporations who have people that are working who didn't make the rules. And this is one of the things that I've really worked hard. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes not so much. When I get on the phone with the people at customer service, why are you yelling at them, people? They didn't make the rules. They didn't set up the protocols, the guidelines, the restrictions, this or that or the other. They're just there. And boy, they have to put up with a lot. And you wouldn't like them calling you. Certainly if you get into financial problems, the creditors start calling you and giving you grief and so forth. But the fact of the matter is that we're all here working together. I've said this many times before, Ken. If the good Lord had intended us for all of us to live solitary lives, I'm pretty sure there are close to 8 billion or more Class M planets. Each one of us could occupy it. I mean, the universe is vast. Come on. There are trillions and trillions of stars out there, I'm sure, because I don't know where it ends. I don't know where the wall is. But what's the reality? We're all here. And it tells me that we're all to work together. By the way, the golden rule, I forgot to mention this. I actually rephrase that a little bit. I say, do unto others as if you were the others. Although I'm not sure how well that would work if you don't feel real good about yourself, if you don't love yourself in that respect, that you would be harmful to yourself. Well, then that's a whole nother story. But I think there's something to be said for that. I would actually like to address that just a little bit, if we can, as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and I thank you for staying with us, along with Ken Gosnell, author of Well Done. I almost said well-being, but there's just a part of that too, and that's what we want to talk about, well-being. There's a passage in the New Testament, be perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. And I ponder that. What does that mean? What does that perfect mean? And it actually took me back to I think it was the Psalms, because I thought, okay, God is neither good nor bad, right or wrong, good or evil, black or white. He is not dual, okay? God is just God. And in the Old Testament, it says, I am that I am. Mm-hmm. So I thought, okay, to be perfect like God is just to be. Just be who you are. And it kind of goes to going within and just pausing As one of my guests has said, even if it's just for 60 seconds, just pause. Don't do it when you're driving. Don't do it if it's at a red light, because it doesn't stay red for 60 seconds, But just be. Don't move, don't think, don't say. Just sit still, sit calmly. And if the still small voice speaks to you, listen. Let's talk about that in terms of our own self-worth. I don't want to belabor this point, but one other aspect to this is this. If God the Father saw no value in you or I as his children, he never would have set up the sacrifice, right? We had to have had value in the eyes of the Father for there even to be a sacrifice, right?
Right.
So we were priceless even before the sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
How much more priceless are we after that?
Right.
By the same token, our egos do tend to get in the way and we start thinking a little haughty. I have to be thankful to the universe for giving me my comeuppance when I get a little bit too uppity from my britches. But talk to us about the concept of self-worth, and I'm not sure if we want to use the word appropriate concept or appropriate level, but what's the best way to monitor that so that we can stay humble, but also recognize, like you, I'm good at what I do, Ken. And that's okay to say, right? Ken?
Yeah, I think I like to think in that terms of being perfect like our Father as being authentic,
okay,
and being totally transparent. And there was a oneness about God. I am who I am. He was the Alpha and the Omega. He's authentically who he is, and I think he's calling us to authenticity. And I tell business leaders today, and it's true for all of us, but authenticity is the number one aspect that attracts people to a business today, whether it's team members or whether it's customers. They want to go be with a company that is very authentic in who they are. And you're seeing some of that today with businesses where they're trying to wrestle, they're trying to communicate or step into issues that really aren't related to them because they think that that's going to convey a level of, hey, I'm with this group of people that they want to have as their customer. Mm-hmm. But it comes across as very inauthentic. And I actually think it drives people away from their particular business. And for those businesses that are authentic, then I think it's actually going to be something that draws people to them. But I think our value comes from our authenticity, right? I don't have to be more than what I am. I'm trying to be the best that I can be. I recognize where I'm still growing or developing, whether it's as a company or organization or an individual. And I'm honest about those areas of weakness. And when we can have that kind of authenticity, then I think it endears people to us. It draws people closer to us. And that's the kind of the example that Jesus did. He didn't have to come in and proclaim that he was king, right? I mean, it kind of drew out of him. And then, of course, as he went to the cross and sacrificed himself, he acknowledged that he indeed was the Son of God. But he wasn't around saying, everybody serve me because I'm the king. He was just authentically who he was.
He was humble.
He was humble. He cared about people. He still had all the power that he could do miracles, and he could do all those kinds of things. We get into trouble when we push into arrogance over authenticity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? And that's where I think you see a lot of conflict that happens. That's where you see a lot of people, trying to make up more. They don't feel good about themselves. And so they say, I've got to be something more. And I know it's a temptation for every leader, every person, but I would just encourage people to push into their authenticity, right?
Yeah.
Know their order, work the order, know who they are, know what they're called to do, understand their gifts, their purpose, their talent, push into that as much as they can, understand their areas of weakness, be humble about that, and then they become this person that everybody wants to come in and support and help.
Yeah, and I'm the CEO of a company. Oh, look at me. Yeah, but you're not the first, nor will you be the last CEO of a company, okay? So you're not in rarefied air, young man, young woman. And that's one of the things that, like I said, I'm so grateful that I am shown those moments when I need to get back into my authenticity, my humility. but never denigrate. Self-deprecation seems to be also rampant, and I'll put it this way. There are two phrases that signify to us, to you and me, about a person's mindset. And it's not the glass half full or half empty. It's, that's not bad. Oh, that's good. Which would you rather hear? I just made a pie. That's good. As opposed to that's bad. Mm-hmm. I had a guy who worked here at the station. He would come into the production room, record his news. He'd make a mistake. I was down at the other end of the hall doing some stuff in there. I would hear screaming and yelling, and he was talking to himself about how stupid and dumb and da-da-da. And the profanity that came out of that room was unbelievable. And it was all self-directed. Mm-hmm. I thought, wow, you've got an incredible voice and talent. It is important to maintain that balance and, again, that authenticity. This is Tell Me Your Story. Ken Gosnell is my guest. Well Done is the book. WellDoneBook.com is the website. We will be linked, and we hope that you will click on that link when you go to SoundCloud or any of the other locations, whether it be the podcast or the video cast, and we hope that you will stay tuned to Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and Ken Gosnell is my guest. Ken, before we wrap things up, and I hate to bring this to an end because there's just so much more I would like to talk to you about. This has just been a lot of fun. I have not been one to sit here with a list of questions. Question 1, who is Ken? Why are you here? Question 2, what about your book? And tell us about Principle 13. Oh, I'm sorry, there are only 12. Oops, I didn't read the book, did I? But I have 3 final questions that I would like to ask you before we wrap this up. And it's just been a great pleasure to converse with you here and share these ideas that are literally, correct me if I'm wrong, Ken, open to everybody.
Correct. Yep, correct.
Before I ask those 3 questions, let me share with you, the listener and the viewer, that we are here Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m. We're streaming live at those times at richarddugan.com, as well as the Wednesday edition, which is 9 a.m. You can listen then as well at richarddugan.com. The podcasts are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and many other platforms across the internet. We're also on YouTube, where you can watch these interviews. YouTube channel is Tell Me Your Story. Surprise, surprise. And just look for the guy with the hat. We hope that you'll subscribe. I'm up to a whopping 38 subscribers on YouTube and over 50. Ken, I wish I knew what this really meant. I've been podcasting and posting on SoundCloud since January 1, 2018, and I have over 50,000 listens.
Wow. Well done. Well done.
I don't know what that means, Ken. I really don't. But I'm grateful. I am very grateful. Also, if you can support the work we're doing, folks, we would greatly appreciate that as well. We'll keep moving forward regardless, but go to PayPal. It's there for your security as well as ours. I love PayPal as a middleman or a person or what have you, because it keeps better records than I do. And if you can do that, put in when you send to Richard at richarddugan.com. They're going to ask for an email address, richard@richarddugan.com. Any amount is gratefully accepted and used for the work that we're doing here. And please participate. Even more importantly than the contributions, I ask you to stop and be still, be quiet, just be and listen to that still small voice. So my first of 3 questions, Ken. Who is Ken Gosnell?
Oh, I love it. Hey, I was going to tell you, well done on your hat, by the way. I love it. I need something like that in my wardrobe so I can.
I need to get a new one. This one's dirty. So, who is Ken Gosnell? And thank you.
Right. The simplest question to that is, I'm a son of my father and mother who've taught me the principles and values of hard work and to support and encourage other people. I'm right now. I own CEO Experience, which is, I think, one of the most dynamic leadership organizations in the country as we partner and work with leaders. But But the principles that I share are principles that I didn't create. They're principles that have been practiced for the last 100 years and probably more than that in businesses and around the world. But the thing that I hope more than anything that people remember is that I just cared about other people, and I really wanted them to reach their peak performance. And that's what I say. One of the goals that I have is to learn something new every day. And so I'm a learner.
Second question, what is it that you hope to or want to achieve through the work that you're doing now?
Yeah, we want to start a well done movement. I want those words to be spoken in our culture, in every business across the country. I want every employee to hear it. I want every leader to say it. I want every leader to hear it. And ultimately, we want the goal, the kingdom impact aspect is when we die and get to heaven, that we hear these words from our Maker, that he says, well done, good and faithful servant. Mm-hmm. What you did in your life was significant, was important, what I called you to do, and then enter into your master's happiness for eternity.
And finally, what is your life's purpose?
Yeah, my life's purpose is to change the world. I want to help and do that through Kingdom Impact. I want to inspire leaders all around the world to be at their very best and to be a leader that other people want to be like.
And that is why we are here with Tell Me Your Story, too. We want to change the world as well. And we join hands with you, Ken Gosnell, to do that. And we can make it happen. We can, and again, I also preface that by saying, that doesn't mean that where we are is awful, terrible, icky. We got to get out of here. No. It just means there's always room for improvement.
That's right.
Ken, thank you so much. This has been fabulous.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate it. Keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Well done.
And I'm Richard Dugan, and I thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. We are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to lol.